Some of India's oldest stories are not written in books. They are carved into stone. Near Raipur in Chhattisgarh stands the ancient Mahadev temple at Deobaloda, believed to date back to the 11th century. Its walls preserves intricate carvings, its architecture reflects an older era, and its unfinished form has left behind a story that continues to be told. Imagine a temple being just built in 6 months. Not a small shrine, a stone temple covered with sculptures of gods, dancers, musicians, and scenes from everyday life. And yet, something about it still feels incomplete. This is the Mahadev temple at Deobaloda here in Chhattisgarh. It is associated with the Kalachuri period, and local tradition gives it another name, Chamasi Mandir, the 6-month temple. The temple belongs to a period when temple architecture across central India was developing into highly elaborated stone structures. In this tradition, architecture and sculpture were not treated as separate elements. The temple itself became a canvas where religious symbolism, mythology, and the visual world of its time were brought together in a stone. The story of this temple is closely connected to a local legend about the sculptor who built it. According to the legend, the temple was constructed in just 6 months. The sculptor is said to have spent most of his time working on the temple. He worked through day and often continued into the evening. As the temple took shape, he kept adding figures of deities, dancers, musicians, and other forms began to emerge from the sandstone. Over time, he became so absorbed in his work that he stopped paying attention to everything around him. According to the legend, he eventually didn't even notice that his clothes had begun to tear from the long hours of work. Then one fine day, a woman arrived at the temple carrying a kalash. She saw the sculpture and for the first time, he realized his condition. Embarrassed, he ran towards the kund and jumped. The women followed him. And according to the legend, both disappeared into the water. And that is where the story of sculpture ends. His work, however, is still here. And if you look closely at the temple, you begin to see how much work went into it. The temple is built in sandstone, following the architectural vocabulary of the Nagara tradition. The basic temple structure includes the Garbhagriha, the sanctum, the mandapa or the pillared hall, and the shikara, which would have risen above the sanctum. Here we can see the first two, but the upper structure is no longer there. Now look at the lower parts of the wall. These aren't just decorative bands. They include elephants, horses, and human figure. Some of the scenes appear to show hunting, dancing, and other activities. You can actually spend quite a bit of a time just reading these figures. And as you move upwards, the imagery changes. Here we begin to see the temple's divine figures. So the walls aren't representing just one story or one figure. They bring together different parts of the religious and visual culture of the period. And when we come inside the mandapa, look at these pillars. The pillars carry sculptures of deities including Bhairava, Vishnu, Shiva, and Mahishasuramardiनी. But you will also find musicians and dancers. And these are some of my favorite details because they are not just showing gods, they are showing people performing. And then you have these faces are called Kirti Mukhas. They are stylish protective motifs found in Indian temple architecture. And once you start noticing them, you begin to see them throughout the temple. And everything eventually leads here. The entrance to the Garbhagriha is elaborately decorated. On the either sides, there are Dwarpalas, the traditional door guardians. And inside is Shiva. and then we come back to the Kund. The water is where the local legend reaches its conclusion. The sculpture is said to have disappeared here, followed by the women carrying the kalash. Another local tradition connects the Kund with a supposed underground passage to Arang. The story has been passed down alongside the temple for generations. We may never know what exactly happened here, whether the temple was really completed in 6 months or why the construction stopped before the Shikara was completed. But we can still see what remains: the sculptures, the architecture, the sanctum, the mandapa, and all those small details carved into the sandstone. Centuries later, the people who made them are unknown, but their work remains visible in almost every part of the temple. Perhaps an unfinished temple doesn't always mean an unfinished creation, because sometimes what survives is enough. This is Sudo Sudhanshu with camera person Ria, and you're watching the CSR Journal.